you so very, very much for being here this morning. We know that for the last few weeks at least, everybody's been trying to find out what is the Black Caucus doing for the 2014 elections. So this is our opportunity to tell you what we are doing. Everybody knows the statistics about voting. In the past two presidential elections, African American voters surpassed every other demographic group in casting their ballots. We know that. And while we know that voter turnout significantly decreases in midterm elections, we also know that there is an opportunity to ensure that African American voters, and particularly those where we have highly contested Senate races, know what's at stake in this election. I think that it is important for them to understand why it is important to vote in 2014. And I'm so very pleased that we are talking about 2014 instead of 2016, because this is the election that is critical. There has been a lot of speculation about what the CBC is doing. So the first thing I'd like to mention is our Freedom Sunday initiative, which you're going to hear a great deal or more about from Congressman Cleaver, where on this Sunday, we're going to reach over 900,000 people in churches across this country. There are a number of districts where African American voters will be absolutely essential to winning. And we want to get every vote that we can because we know every vote is going to matter. So the CBC is working with the DSCC and the DCCC to assist with GOTV efforts in key frontline and red to blue House districts. I'm going to stop at this point and come back at the end, but I want to bring now our leader, Jim Clyburn, for some comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if there's a whole lot to be added to what was just said. I can add my voice to it. But the fact of the matter is, on Sunday is our kickoff for this. On Sunday, I'll be in the state of Connecticut, where we have some critical House races. We will be following up Sunday with many of us going into specific states. I have already been invited into Louisiana and Arkansas, Georgia, and North Carolina. Congressional Black Caucus members are willing and hopefully will be able to go into any area where people believe we can be helpful. I know that this election is very critical to the agenda that the Congressional Black Caucus is pursuing. And I want to thank Chair Marcia Fudge for keeping that agenda in the forefront of the public. And I'm hopeful that we can instill in the voters' minds that it's just as important to have a Congress and city councils, county commissions, and school boards addressing their issues as it is to have a president that may be sensitive to those issues sitting in the White House. School board meetings, city council decisions, and state legislatures are very, very important to our efforts, and we hope that we can highlight that this year in such a way that it will set in and become a part of our day-to-day participation going forward. And with that, Madam Chair, I suspect I want to yield to the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus's Political Action Committee, the gentleman from the other 6th district, the 6th district of New York.
First, let me thank the chair. Chairwoman Fudge has been really on top of this for a while. And this is really the plan now being put into action. And as indicated by the leader, Jim Clyburn, it starts right now. We have done the planning and we've been putting together and working with the DSCC and the DCCC. It's now implementation time. And we know, and what is clear, that we've looked at states, particularly 6 states that are crucial to maintain in the Senate, whether you're talking about North Carolina, Louisiana, Georgia, Arkansas, Kentucky, we're going to make sure that we're there. And even in the House seats, we've also looked at where there is African American population of 10% or more, and the margin of difference in winning in those districts before. People won by 2 or 3%, where we have even lost. We look at those are possible pickups for us. We get the turnout that we need. And we're going to be engaging first, talking about how important these local elections are. We're going to be engaging with some of those on the ground, especially clergy and civic leaders and those who are elected, so that we can make sure that we are part of their planning. Because often, when you think of the Congressional Black Caucus, there's black people in those areas that don't have a member of Congress. And so by us coming and talking to them about the agenda that we have in Washington and why it's important for their future for us to get engaged, we're going to do that. And the interest from the Senate side, along with quite naturally with the DCCC, that they're already requesting, as indicated by the leader, he's already going out. We've got people that are headed out this weekend. We've got long lines, and all of the CBC members have signed up. They said, we're ready to go. So we've got a listing of individuals and a plan every week where members of the Congressional Black Caucus will be in one of the states or districts that are important to win. And people are asking for members to come. What is happening is, can we get somebody for a church service? Or can we get somebody for a civic meeting? Can we get somebody for a women's meeting? And so we've got folks that are lined up that are going to be on the ground. We've also are planning, because it's important what we do, we hit the ground in a state and we visit multiple cities. We get in a bus and we stay together for 2 to 3 days, and we're going to be making stop after stop after stop after stop in these states, in these various districts, energizing the voters and letting them know why it's so important for them to run. For example, and the message that we're going to be talking about is in campaigning on making sure that they hear the messages, for example, where they heard David Perdue refer to the U.S. Senate as a plantation and never apologized for it. And we're going to make sure that they know when they heard those statements. Where we have candidates like Tom Tillis and Joni Ernst and Bill Cassidy, who have not done anything other than try to tamper down activity of black voters coming out, whether changing laws so that you don't have early voting, who are trying to take away people's voting rights. When you see situations that have taken place, like in Ferguson and in New York, these are things that resonate, and we're going to make sure that folks know that voting makes a difference. And that's the message that we're going to be taking home as we move around. So we're engaged. And lastly, let me just say this. Not only are we doing it as a PAC, we're raising money. And we're raising money, and we're going to be giving that money to Democratic candidates, both those who are here as well as to red to blue. And that goes along with our endorsements to those candidates so that the people in there know where the Congressional Black Caucus stand and that we stand with those individuals. So it's a plan that we're going to be putting together and working and coordinating with as I said, DSCC, the DCCC, and members of the black community throughout this country. And now I'll yield to the gentleman from Kansas City, Missouri, the Reverend Emmanuel Cleveland.
Let me express appreciation to the chair of our PAC, Gregory Meeks, and our chair, who has pushed and pushed and pushed to make sure that we do this very important project, as well as our leader, Jim Clyburn. In 1964, primarily through the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, but also other civil rights organizations participated. The first Freedom Sundays were launched, and the purpose of those concentrations in congregations, or particularly around the South, was to not only get people registered to vote, but to energize them. And keep in mind that it was dangerous to vote in those days. It was dangerous to register votes today in those days. We have graves all around the South with the bodies of men and women who dare to stand up to just register voters. We live in a democracy, and the greatest tribute to democracy is for the ultimate participation in that democracy by all of the citizens. And one of the greatest insults to democracy is to do anything that would restrict or constrict voting. It would seem to us that the one thing we ought to be doing in state houses and in Congress is everything we can to maximize the participation in the democracy. And while there will be few churches bombed, probably none, due to this first Freedom Sunday, I think it is important for you to understand that it is still dangerous. And it is dangerous because when we begin to push people away from the polls, it reduces the impact and significance of our democracy, and it also makes a mockery of our democracy as seen by people around the world. One of the things we are doing, we sent out tool kits to pastors all around the country. We will have, 40,000. We will have pastors all over the country delivering sermons about voting. Now, let me just make sure that you understand theologically what's going on here. First of all, none of the monotheistic religions push their people into non-participation in politics. All of them suggest that. And if you look at the Hebrew Testament or at the Christian Testament, you will find people engaged in the political struggles. Now, Moses, for example, was told by Pharaoh, politics and religion don't mix. Get out of here, leave everything alone, because Moses was leading a labor movement. And the workers, as you know, went on strike and left Egypt without workers. So I think that, and I could go and call the roll, but we don't have time. So we have trained pastors. I was on the phone yesterday with hundreds of pastors in Florida. They know what to do and what not to do. We're not telling people to whom they should direct their support. We don't do that. That's not our business. We want them to come out and vote. We do believe that if they come out and vote, that it will increase the number of people who will come to Congress who will be sensitive to the needs of all Americans. Now, finally, let me just say that next weekend is the annual legislative conference of the Congressional Black Caucus. We will have hundreds of pastors coming into Washington next week. And on Saturday morning, we will have a brunch with pastors led by myself, Congressman Elijah Cummings, and Dr. Barbara Skinner, where we will, on a person-to-person basis, communicate what we're trying to get through. Freedom Sunday, September 21st, is going to be a day in which this whole country becomes concerned about the power of the vote. And we are not going to back up or slow down on our effort to maximize the voter turnout of African Americans and other people of color. Thank you very much.
And as we prepare to bring our guest speaker, let me just say a couple of thank yous, because after Ms. Brazil finishes, we're going to take some questions. But let me first thank the more than 21,000 volunteers who have already taken action in African American communities across this country. Let me thank the more than 1.5 million volunteer recruitment calls that have been made in our districts, the more than 1.8 million calls and doors that have been knocked on in our districts, the tens of thousands of people who have already been registered in our districts, And so I know people have been asking where I'm going. Well, on Sunday, I'm looking to see you in Arkansas. 2 weeks after that, I'm going to see you in North Carolina. 3 weeks after that, I'm going to see you in Louisiana. We're going to be everywhere. You want the Black Caucus? We are on our way. We're going to do everything it takes to win this election. We are a part of a great team. We are part of a great country. If we can't make sure that the greatest country in the world treats its people the way they should be treated, then we have lost the battle. So as long as we're in Congress, we're going to continue the fight. You're going to see us everywhere. Now, we're going to have Freedom Sunday on Sunday, but we're going to have Turnout Sunday in a few weeks. So look for the CBC. And with that, I want to bring our dear friend, someone who I know has a message for us today about why we need to be doing what we're doing. That's Donna Brazil. Coming up, Donna. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair, to our leader, Mr. Clyburn, to the chair of the PAC, Congressman Meek, and to my Sunday joy, Congressman Cleaver, although I'm a Catholic girl, so forgive me for that. Let me first of all thank Madam Chair for launching this important effort. As many of you know, the African American vote is crucial for the Democratic successes all across the country. In fact, this is a year like no other in terms of our ability to not just expand the participation of African Americans in the midterm elections, but we have been able to target the kind of vote that we need in order to win. The Democratic National Committee has launched the most, what I think, aggressive voter expansion program, not just in the 19 targeted congressional districts where the African American vote will make the difference in terms of winning or losing, but also in 8 crucial Senate races where the turnout will be key for Democrats retaining control of the Senate. Just a few weeks ago, Michelle Obama launched 1 million more votes for 2014. This is a very important campaign because we know from experience that if we target and encourage people to vote, remind them that there's an election, if we register new voters, expand the universe, we know that we can get the kind of turnout. This campaign has already generated over 400,000 postcards. And what it basically says is people are committing to vote on Tuesday, November 4th. So 46 days out, the chairwoman mentioned that we have volunteers, we have field staff, we have resources that are targeting people. But this is not just a campaign to say go out and vote. We're talking about crucial issues, whether it's raising the minimum wage, preventing gun violence, making education more affordable, and of course, protecting voting rights. So this campaign will be ongoing. We're still in the expansion phase, meaning we're identifying people who did not vote in 2010 but voted in 2012. We know that they're key to our success, and we're going to ensure each and every day that we're in the courts because in some states we're still litigating to ensure that the Republicans will not restrict the right to vote. I'm referring to North Carolina, where we have to continue to litigate for early voting. We're still litigating on voter ID laws across the country. But our team, together with the DNC, the DCCC, the DSC, the DGA, all of the Democratic Party, we are focused on making sure that we get the kind of turnout we need in order to win this fall. I'll say in closing that it was back in 1998 when I came over to this building to coordinate the so-called GOTV efforts. Many of you know that was the year in a 6-year itch when all of the pundits wrote the Democratic Party off. Everyone said that we would lose seats. We would lose upwards of 44, 50 seats. That year, not only did we gain seats, we came within 5 seats of winning back the House, and we retained seats in the Senate. That was because we had a good program to reach those voters who will turn out and vote Democratic. I'm confident that we're going to have a similar turnout this year, that people will become more and more enthusiastic, and that we will have a victorious night on Tuesday, November 4th. Thank you, and I turn it back to the Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you all. We are open for questions if you have any. Yes.
Deborah Berry with the Next Washington Bureau. Can you talk about your efforts, particularly in the Deep South and places like Louisiana? How much of a difference it will make to have
Well, that's a great question. That's why Louisiana is on our list of states that we're going to focus on. The black population of Louisiana is almost 30%. In a race that is going to be close, clearly we tip the scales. So we're going to be spending a lot of time in Louisiana because we believe that the senator can win, and we believe she will win. As well as we have one other a congressional seat there as well that we're going to be working in, but we believe that we can make a difference in Louisiana.
What's the House seat you're talking about?
The seat that McAllister is in right now.
I just want to correct one thing I said because I want to make sure I'm talking about Louisiana. It was Bill Cassidy, not David Perdue, but it was Bill Cassidy who has yet to apologize for the comments where he compared the United States Senate to a plantation, and he was asking not to be kicked, quote, like a slave. And also, let me add with Louisiana, because of its jungle primary system, it makes the African American vote and turnout especially crucial, and that's why that is really important. But I just want to make sure I got that clear because that was Cassidy.
Let me also add, Louisiana with 30% African American, Louisiana with 30% African American population, Georgia with 30% African American population. Our focus there is expanding the vote, making sure that we do the kind of voter registration that needs to be done. Stacey Abrams, the minority leader in Georgia, has taken the lead on that, along with the mayor of Atlanta. North Carolina with 15% African American population, Arkansas with 15% African American population. We're not going to forget the fact that in Virginia, think about 2013 and Terry McAuliffe's victory last year, an off-season election. That was because we had a very targeted campaign. Congressman Bobby Scott was very crucial. His districts, the whole Hampton Road. So if you look from Virginia, where Mark Warner is in a fight with Ed Gillespie, to North Carolina, Kay Hagan, to Georgia, to Arkansas with Mark Pryor, to Louisiana, my home state, with Senator Landrieu. And if you go up north to Michigan, that's also crucial in terms of the African American population. And we're going to, I was just in New Mexico because I want to make sure we get out the Latino vote. I was in Denver because that's a very important vote with Mark Udall. So across the country, there are districts and areas where the CBC vote, their support and their ability to go out and be surrogates, to go out there and encourage the kind of campaign, voter registration, and GOTV will be indispensable in making sure we have a victorious election night.
Thank you.
This is a little bit of a policy.
I'm going to do
Oh, sure.
1,
Sure.
2, 3,
Go ahead.
4. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is a little bit of a policy question, but it reflects, the balance of power here and how the elections goes here. We've had so many issues the past couple of weeks here. ISIS, dealing with funding for Ebola, the Ukrainian president here was yesterday asking for assistance. Do you think that if sequestration stays in, it's going to be hard to deal with some of the agenda items that are important to the CBC, SNAP, and so on and so forth, if those things continue to be squeezed, or does that help put sequestration out once and for all, so that so all these types of things can be funded appropriately?
Well, let me just say 2 things. Even the people who wanted sequestration realized it was a mistake. And they are playing all kinds of games right now. If you just look at the CR we just passed, everything domestic took a cut. They found a way to increase defense by using OCO money. So they know it's a mistake. So if they don't care anything about this country, the sequester will stand. If they care about the people we represent, it will change. And I believe that it will.
Thank you. Renee Scho from McClatchy and from the News and Observer in North Carolina. Could I ask you to drill in a little bit on the North Carolina race? How important is that 15% of the population to the outcome? And, who is being targeted? And also, are there any differences in get out the vote now than when in 1998 or
Go ahead, but let me just say I'm from Ohio, which is another place they don't want us to vote. And so I'm very, very keenly aware of some of the things that are going on in North Carolina. But you know the numbers as well as we do. The race is in some ways what they're calling it a dead heat, a statistical dead heat. 15% black vote can change that election, can change it drastically. And so it's really important. But if you want to come on and address it, or anyone else.
I just want to remind everybody that we've, over the last few months, Moral Monday, with the NAACP, they've been focused for almost a year on voter registration. That is the key to expanding the electorate, something that the Democratic Party support wholeheartedly, but also ensuring that those students that in many ways are being disenfranchised by Republican attempts to force them to declare their residency not on campus but in the community. We are, again, back in court. I'm not the lawyer for the party. I will speak to you afterwards in terms of the legal strategy that we're deploying down there. But we have a very targeted campaign. It's expanding the vote. It's making sure we get all of the registrations in. But we know with just a 1% additional turnout that we saw in 1998 that we can make a difference for Kay Hagan. She's run a phenomenal campaign despite the fact that there's been several $1 million spent against her, but she has a very targeted focus, and I believe with the 12th Congressional District, Mel Watts, OC, that's also in play. We will see the kind of turnout in the Triangle region and other places in the state, even in the eastern part of the state that typically the party doesn't target. We're also targeting voters in those areas. So this is going to be a very unprecedented campaign in North Carolina, and I think it will help Kay Hagan.
And let me also just say, if they didn't think we could make a difference, the DNC would not be funding this effort for Freedom Sunday and assisting us with getting turnout. They know how important this is. Yes.
Jesse Holland with AP. We all know that African American voting in midterm is going up historically, but it has never reached the level of the presidential voting in the last two elections. What's going to be different about this campaign as opposed to previous campaigns that's going to get those voters who showed up for presidential elections to show up for congressional elections? What's going to be different? It's going to get those people to come now when they didn't 2 years, 4
Well,
years ago.
I think a couple of things, Jesse. First off, nobody votes at the level they vote in the presidential, not just black people. So let's be clear about that. But the other thing is, I think that once they know what is at stake, that they will vote. Once they realize that if we lose the Senate, they really are going to impeach the president. I don't care what they say. We'll have 2 years of gridlock. If they win the Senate, then we're going to be talking about changing, quote unquote, entitlement programs that I do believe people are entitled to, like Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. We will be trying to change this back for the next 10 years. Let them raise the age of Social Security. Let them start to talk about taking funds away from Medicaid or Medicare. These are things that they can basically do. I mean, we know that they need a 2/3 majority in the Senate to do pretty much anything, but they will make our lives miserable for the next 2 years. And the other thing they will do is continue to try to make our president an illegitimate president. That's what all of this is about, suing the president. The president wasn't born here. The president wasn't smart enough to go to Harvard. The president is lawless. He is, all of these things. All it is meant to do is to make our president illegitimate. And so we're going to have 2 more years of that foolishness if they take back the Senate and get any more seats in the House. So I think once we make African Americans aware of that, and in addition to which, if we let them know that their school funding is going to continue to go down, if we let them know that their neighborhoods are not going to be any safer because we're going to have less police and fire on the street, those are things that make people vote. And so I'm hopeful that once they hear what we have to say, it won't even be that hard to get them out. They'll be standing in line when the doors open.
Let me just add to that real quick. It goes to the other question we said about the Deep South. And the chairwoman's right, because already the Republican Senate candidates like Tom Tillis and Joni Ernst and Bill Cassidy and David Perdue have already said that we should impeach President Obama. So we're going to let the folks know that that's what, so this is like voting in a presidential election, because that's what they're after. They're after this president. And we're going to make sure that that's out there. We're also going to let folks know, for example, like in Georgia, when it was announced that several metro Atlantic counties would expand early Sunday voting, that a Georgian Republican official vowed to end it because it would, quote, be dominated by African American shoppers, and it is near several large African American mega churches. And so that's a quote. And so we're going to let them know in Georgia that folks are trying to repress their voting, and already Michelle Nunn's campaign is organizing Georgia voters along with us cooperatively in unprecedented ways to turn out. We're going to let them know that in Arkansas, while Mark Pryor has been spending his career trying to pull things together for Arkansasians, Tom Cotton has consistently proven to be extreme for Arkansas, and Arkansas is going to be one of those races that's so close and is absolutely crucial. And where Cotton has, there's a new voter ID law there, and Cotton has claimed that new law is not burdensome, which threatens to disenfranchise voters, especially African American voters in Arkansas. So we're going to let them know what Cotton has said, and that he's one that's trying to take away those rights. So those things are going to be issues that we're going to drill at home, because what you have found is black people do come out to vote when they know it's in their interest. And they understand that this election, we're going to make sure it's clear that they understand that this midterm election is in their interest, just as a presidential election is.
Okay, 1, 2. Oh, I said you were next, and then Joyce and Nick. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm Daniel Salazar. I'm also with McClatchy. Now, Arkansas voters, they're going to be also voting to raise the state minimum wage there. How does that affect get out the vote efforts in that state? Does it make these efforts a lot easier? Can you just talk about the dynamics there?
I'm certainly hopeful it's going to make these efforts easier. It should bring more people out to vote. I mean, you know as well as I that over the last 10 years, actually, almost every new job that's been created has been a low-paying job. And so we all know that people need a decent and a living wage. And so I'm certainly hopeful that that's going to be something that's going to encourage turnout. But I'm not from Arkansas. But I feel comfortable about being able to say it that way.
Thanks. How much money, do you know how much money is being spent to get there on Sunday, and how many people could be reached by it? And also to sort of follow up Jesse's question, we're not really hearing a strategy that's different from what happened in 2010. We didn't have a presidential election, obviously lost a lot of seats. So I'm wondering what in this strategy is different that would bring black people out, that would be different. Maybe Donna, you could take a swing at that from what we've seen previously.
But it really is very different. Very different.
You know.
I'm gonna let you come up, but let me answer the first part of your question.
Do you know how much
Yeah.
money?
Well, two things. We're going to be in 3,000 churches on Sunday that we're aware of. So we're averaging about 300 persons a church, which I think is low. We're talking about 900,000 people that we're going to physically see on Sunday. As well as this is going to continue to some other Sundays, because every pastor's not going to do it that Sunday, but we actually have gotten a commitment from the heads of all of the denominations of the largest African American churches in the country to do this for us. And so we know that we're going to ultimately reach almost 12 million people is our ultimate goal. On this event, just for Freedom Sunday alone, we're spending someplace in the neighborhood of 250,000, maybe, about that. But we're going to spend significant dollars. You know that there's going to be more than $60 million spent on the ground in this election. And that's a modest number.
Right, but do you know how much of that is spent on black voter turnout?
Well, I don't know that it's broken up that way, but I can say that just in North Carolina over the last week, they did $1 million buy on black radio. Just in North Carolina, and there is more to come. And you want to answer the rest of it?
Yeah, and I can tell you in Louisiana, they're spending $600,000-$700,000 on African American media. So look, it's multi-layered, as you know, in a campaign. You got to look at media and messaging. You got to look at digital, which is a totally new component in how we reach voters. You got to look at all of the paper we're doing, the sheer number that the Congresswoman mentioned of volunteers and offices and field staff that we've hired across the platform. I just want to go back to the presidential. As you know, I run a presidential campaign, and our targets are different. We're looking at 270 electoral votes. And in a non-presidential year, you're really looking at the voters you need in order to win. And we have different states in play in 2014 than we had in 2010 in terms of the black vote. So I can go historically I can go all the way back to 1862 in terms of midterm elections. I've been around that long. But the truth is that this is a very targeted approach. And I want to just say on the record, because I'm vice chair of the party, but without the Congressional Black Caucus, their leadership and their insistence that we do this early, that we have this in place now and not 2 weeks out, that's a very different component. So We're targeting states that were not targeted in 2010 because we didn't have the kind of targets that we have today. Louisiana was not up, North Carolina. So we have a different political landscape, so therefore our strategy must be different. And this is a multi-layered strategy. In the 19 districts where we can not just hold on to Democratic seats, expand seats. We will expand the number of African Americans in Congress, for example. But we're also targeting red to blue districts as well, where African American voters may not make up more than 5 or 10%, but we know that in 65 districts in the last cycle, these elections were won by less than 1% of the vote. So just increasing black turnout or Latino or minority turnout, youth turnout, which also drops off in non-presidential years from anywhere between 7 and 13%. We know that that can make a difference in this election. If it's close, we can pull somebody over the top. That's the focus.
And the other thing is, we know we made a mistake when we didn't vote in 2010.
Okay.
There and, okay.
Two quick things. What role, if any, will President Obama play in your campaign? Because no one can energize the black vote like the president can. And two, what's your ultimate goal in terms of, if you can put a number on it, if you hit a certain percentage of the African American vote, would you say this campaign worked?
Well, I think that if we win, it worked. And so I don't have a particular number, because if we win, it worked. I think that we also have to realize that there's no percentage that we can tell. We just need enough of a percentage to win, because we don't know how many other people are going to vote. So I can't give you a percentage. And as it relates to the president, I'm only talking about the CBC today. The president has his agenda. He has his own political people. I know he is going to be playing. I can't give you what they're doing. You'd have to ask him that
So
question.
you haven't coordinated with the White House on this campaign?
We have not. I mean, they know and are supportive of the campaign, but no, there has not been a coordination with the White House.
Congresswoman Fudge, you were saying earlier that.
I want y'all to know that's my local plain dealer reporter. So y'all be real careful what I say, if it may be wrong.
But just a couple of quick things. You had said that you were, are you personally going to Arkansas
I
and
am.
Louisiana
I
and
am.
North Carolina? So, and that this is what you're doing on successive Sundays. Okay. Also, I think you were responding to Jess's question. We were talking about how, you have to stress the importance of the election and what it will mean to people and how President Obama could be impeached and all of these other things that could happen, programs of interest to African Americans. I mean, are you suggesting that black ministers tell their congregations this, or are these things that you as politicians will be saying when you're out?
He can tell you what's in the sermons. This is what we are going to be saying. Because what people don't realize is that an impeachment is really nothing more than an indictment, which the House has the numbers to do right now. Now, do I believe that it will ever happen? I don't think that even if we were to lose the Senate, which I don't believe we will, they would have enough votes to do it in the Senate, to convict him. But an indictment is just as bad, because it will tarnish his legacy forever. And you can talk about what they're going to talk about on Sunday. No, that's political talk.
Right.
But also understand that we are a people that have a great affinity for this president. And we're going to rally the troops to protect him in any way we can.
We did send out sample sermons for ministers. Most ministers, however, are quite equipped without even the sample sermons, though I wrote one, and mine was good. It was very good, in fact. However, I think, ministers know the parameters, and I think they will incorporate some of the facts that will bring people out. In some places, you don't even have to do that. I can assure you, and you can remember this, that I told you this today at 13 minutes after 11. The Ferguson, Missouri turnout in the next election is going to be a record number. I hope you get the connection here. If there is something at stake, African Americans are going to turn out in just huge numbers.
When you said Ferguson, Missouri, are you talking about specifically geographically in Ferguson, or are you talking about people upset about that issue turning out in other places?
No. I'm saying Ferguson, Missouri, where we had a 6% turnout in the last election. the point I'm trying to make is when people see themselves as being pushed away, they recoil and they vote. And so I'm saying that turnout in Ferguson will be high. The point I'm trying to make, and perhaps poorly, is that, as the chair mentioned, there are issues out here that will speak to the voters. And when pastors tell them about these issues, that we can't get equal pay bill approved, minimum wage, as somebody mentioned, that impacts women more than men. And so, people will go to the polls thinking, I'm going out to vote myself a raise.
And we're going to wrap up. Donna wants to say a couple of things, but let me just say this too to the media. A lot of it depends on you. You all spend so much time on 2016, you all have made 2014 seem insignificant. Stop. Let's talk about what's at stake today. Let's report what is happening today.
Stop it.
Right.
I just wanted to remind everyone that there are significant, in addition to all of the issues that the Congresswoman mentioned, raising the minimum wage, immigration reform, and of course equal pay for equal work, there's something else that's at stake for African Americans this fall, and that is there's a significant number of African Americans on the ballot across the country. Right here in Maryland, Anthony Brown is poised to be the first African American governor from the great state of Maryland. In Georgia, there are 5 African American women on the ballot, including Lieutenant Governor Connie Stokes. Denise Napier, once again, is up for re-election as state treasurer in Connecticut. Kamala Harris, up for re-election for Attorney General in the state of California. All across this country, whether it's congressional races, ballots, mayoral races, city council races, sheriff races, races that are important to African Americans and all voters. We have people on the ballot, and we are going to do everything in our power to ensure that we have victories all across the country on Election Day. And I just want to say that Michelle Obama, President Obama, not only Bill Clinton, former President Clinton, former First Lady Hillary Clinton, Vice President Joe Biden, we have so many surrogates that will be on the road all throughout the rest of this season, because we're going to get out the vote and we're going to win on Election night.
Thanks, everybody.
We have to ask Reverend Cleaver about the Chiefs.
Yes.
He told me I have to ask you.
Yes.
He said that when we walked in.
Oh, man, haters.